Albert. Huh? Please, yeah.
In one sentence. So I think as I mentioned before, the overcapacity is still the big threat to Indonesia and I think to all Southeast Asia. But I believe that in many ways, winning the heart of the passengers that will fly is the biggest opportunity for us, and we can do that in many ways. On top of the, I think, on top of the ticket price itself.
Yeah. Thank you.
Safety, simplicity, and those low cost. That's the fundamental for low cost.
Very interesting.
Goodness, I can't keep myself to a sentence. So we have a 50% capacity increase this coming year, and we'll double in size in 2.5. We're only just starting. So I think really the future for us is more China, open India, open Middle East. There's a lot of untapped opportunity yet for our model. Not just for the model, but for our role within the Singapore Airlines group. As our association with Tiger Air becomes closer now that they're in the process of being taken private, we can really ramp up the synergies that we have not been able to enjoy so far. Less than 5% of our passengers are connecting to or from AirAsia currently, to or from Tiger currently, whereas 50% or so of AirAsia X's passengers are connecting to short-haul AirAsia.
Is that right? That's very interesting.
So even if we achieve half of that, by definition, these people are traveling from A to C. Whether B is Kuala Lumpur or Singapore is relatively immaterial to them. So I think there's a huge amount of upside for us. In addition, as our interaction with the SIA group becomes stronger, their capacity to sell onto our flights from their network, using their frequency, their distribution, and our ability to carry their passengers to routes that would otherwise be unsustainable for any of the other group airlines due to cost structure or range, I think really accords us massive upside. How well we execute that is, of course, going to be evident over time. But I think with the foundation we've built, there's a lot of future potential.
That's very interesting. That's because we're almost seeing sort of two models here. One is a sort of very simple, low complexity, low cost, I guess point to point. And almost what you're talking about is more of a sort of a hub with a substantial or a significant feed from other airlines coming into your network.
Well, we have a lot of seats. Our smallest aircraft is 335 seats.
Exactly.
And so how do you fill them? You need distribution. You need interline. You need marketing in different parts of the world. You need partnership. And the challenge is how do you do that in a way that doesn't cost you? It's always going to be more complex to have that sort of model than a pure point-to-point LCC. But the revenues that you earn from that complexity, do they outweigh the costs of that complexity? And where the answer is yes, we will pursue that sort of model. And I think that's where we can be successful. If we were to try and provide what we do provide in a short-haul context, it would be utter overkill. But equally, if we were to try and stretch the pure short-haul model into flights of 8 or 9 or 12 hours, I think we wouldn't have any passengers. So it's really a case of horses for courses. Yeah, very, very interesting.
We're almost through, but I just wanted to make sure, are there any questions from the floor? Yes, there's one lady here, I think. Would you?
Rhee from Travel Business Analyst. My question is directed to Campbell, Wilson of Scoot, and to Pak Burhan. How much has your break-even load factor fallen with the lower fuel prices, and what is your break-even load factor?
Well, our fuel price expressed in Singapore dollars after hedging has reduced by about 34%, which is significantly less than the 75% reduction you see in the US dollar-denominated price of crude. So yes, it has benefited the break-even load factor, but perhaps not by as much as you suspect. What is the break-even load factor? Well, that really depends on what your yield is as well. And yield fluctuates by seasonality. If you look at the last quarter, October, December, we made $18 million, which implies that there was a substantial difference between our actual load factor and the break-even load factor. It'll be fluctuating seasonally. It may be positive, it may be negative, but I think, on balance now, load factor should be consistently above the break-even on an annual basis, at least.
I think as we can see from your slide at the time, the profitability EBIT margin in Southeast Asia is 0.3. I think is the lowest, and the fuel price decrease is clearly countered by the depreciation of the currency, and also when fuel goes down, the ticket price, the yield go down definitely in the area of overcapacity region. So I don't see any changes in the break-even load factor. It will still remain at the same level as it is before.
Of course, the other things that contribute to cost and therefore break-even load factor, aircraft efficiency. So 787 had a big improvement for us. Economies of scale, we went from 5 to 10 aircraft. Maturity of routes, it takes time to launch and establish a brand and be able to command a reasonable airfare. All of these things contribute, not just the price of fuel.
Could you say that your load factor could have fallen, the break-even load factor could have fallen by 5 points, let's say?
I think if you look at our financial statements, which are public, you'll be able to calculate the exact amount. I don't know whether it's 5% or not, but it's certainly fallen.
There's a gentleman over here.
Thank you. Hear me okay? I'm Patrick Murphy, and I'm working with some Japanese operations. But what surprised me here, as you've spoken, and I put it to the panel, why aren't you jumping on the opportunity that's coming with the ASEAN Open Skies? If you go back to Europe, at the very start, over 20 years ago, when Open Skies was being advocated, it was being resisted. It was being resisted all along the way. The established airlines have always fought against that Open Skies philosophy. And part of the reason why it happened in Europe, one was consumer bodies, but two was individual airlines like Ryanair coming in and trying to disrupt and change the whole process. And I just fear that the Open Skies is being moderated, rushed down, excluding certain airports, excluding certain countries. And I'd like to see, is there not a case for having an equivalent of a European low-fare airlines association that would take on the battle and start doing the lobbying and start engaging with their governments to be supportive of a total Open Skies operation in Asia, not just for the benefit of the airlines here, but for the consumers in Asia?
Interesting question. So so ASEAN...
I'm not going to get into whether there should or shouldn't be. I think we just need to, the audience needs to understand that the context is a little bit different here. That the EU is a governing organization that has an enforcement mechanism. ASEAN is a community of equals with no enforcement mechanism. So there is cajoling and nudging within ASEAN, but there's no compulsion. So if one country decides not to follow the others for whatever reason, there's nothing the other countries can do other than browbeat. Whereas if a European Union country decided not to adopt Open Skies, there's quite significant penalties for not doing so. So I think in that context, yes, whilst personally speaking, I agree with the objective and the philosophy and the fact that we should be trying to encourage that outcome, it's not quite so easy.
Yeah, and I guess the other point to make is it did take almost 20 plus years in Europe, and I guess this debate has been going on in this area for only maybe, 5 years, something like that.
And fundamentally, let's not forget what started the EU. The EU was fundamentally a response to devastating war. And trying to bind a continent together. Let's, God forbid, hope that doesn't We don't require that sort of thing to precipitate open skies here.
But no, but I agree with the comment. I think it's a good thing in the long run for everyone, for all countries, and increasing travel, interconnectivity. And from an AirAsia perspective, you know, everything that we do, and Tony certainly himself has been personally involved in encouraging open skies in ASEAN, but even in our internally, all of our communication, you know, among our AOCs and everything, we promote ASEAN open skies. So, you know, we really look forward to that. But I think you're right. Practically speaking, it's not as easy to pass. But I think, maybe just, I'll say personally, I think it's a good thing for the countries.
I think the aviation is still a small industry. So, I mean, let's looking at for the other open sky policy. You know, when after in North America, the open sky policy followed the North American economic free zone. It's the same situation in EU and also same situation in China. That's why I think if there's no economic, you know, united, there will be. I think that the chance for the open sky in this region should be very low.
Well, and speaking of open skies, what I would love to see open skies in North Asia. I mean, and you know, the countries get along fairly well, and there's travel between. But I mean, you know, we didn't even talk about China. I think China still only like 5% of the population have passports. So that's amazing. You know, I mean, just the opportunity, and you know, Chinese people want to travel. People want to travel to China. So even with, you know, the ASEAN question that was raised, you know, I hope that we have some sort of open skies, true open skies arrangement in North Asia as well.
I think the 5% number is definitely is not correct. I think almost today, just last year, the outbound travelers, it's like more than 120 million, so which is like about 10% of the population already. So. Yeah, so I think for the whole nation, I think at least 1/3 of the citizens has the experience to go abroad, and I think of course open sky is good. It's good for industry. That's why I agree. But according to what we learn from history, it's not comes because of the lobby, but it's come because it's based on the whole economic and also political issues.
Thank you. Are there any other? Oh, they're here. There's a lady here.
I just wanted to pick up on the comment.
Can you just say who you are? Just
sorry.
introduce it, yeah, please.
Emma Kelly I'm an aviation journalist from various publications. I just wanted to pick up on a comment earlier on, just now, in fact, about perhaps an opportunity for some sort of association for low-fare carriers or low-cost carriers or whatever you want to, however you brand yourselves nowadays. Do you work together in any way facing your challenges, or is it still very much working alone?
I think some of us work together. I think that the 9 AOC holders within the AirAsia group certainly work together. Scoot and our partner Tiger and Nok Scoot, Nok in Thailand, we have a loose association. We tend to work together. There's not really a forum that represents us regionally, although we do participate at a country level in the airport operators forums or such like. I'm not familiar with the others. Of course, we're all subject to antitrust law, so the scope for cooperation is not so great.
True.
So I think it's actually a good idea. You know, from a non-traditional carrier perspective, we probably should get together and you know, do some sharing. What we found, AirAsia, because establishing so many entities, we have talked to many partners, and some of them have been airline companies as well. And so we've had some joint ventures with airline companies. But I think especially when you have such a specific model and you're so focused on cost, simplicity, and complexity reduction, it is hard to set up these alliances, and you know, like the Star Alliances and the things that traditional carriers have done. We just haven't really been fans of those. But I think an overall industry kind of a meeting would actually not be a bad idea. Maybe we should have a follow-up after this meeting.
With the lawyers present.
True.
Yeah, I think in any industry, in any field, I think we cannot work alone. So if we work together, it always much better than if we just work alone. So there is a tendency to do that, but it's still a long process. I think there's some hurdle, some constraint that has to be solved.
It's quite interesting from an IATA perspective, where we've got a number of low-cost carriers as members, but not too many. And we work very closely with a lot of low-cost carriers on the technical areas, very closely indeed, actually. So what we find is that for most low-cost carriers, it's very much about cost. So if membership is going to cost anything, low-cost carriers don't really want to be part of an organization. But certainly where we're dealing with common technical problems relating to airports, infrastructure, etc., we work very closely indeed with the local, with all airlines actually, which is quite. So it's a different sort of culture, really.
I guess we're also allergic to just the whole process and protocol of these forums and discussion shops and things. An organization which is not sitting too far from me recently sent an email and asked for, can you send your VP Finance, your VP Commercial, your VP, and there's like 7 people requested, and I looked in our organization structure, and that's the entire senior management team. We don't have that many people. We don't have that many layers. If someone's going to be away at such a meeting, that's 20% of your headcount gone.
Yeah.
In leadership. So avoid it like the plague.
Any more questions? Okay, well, just to summarize, well, I think it's been very, very interesting this morning to hear from all of the members, the panelists. And I think what emerges for me very clearly is that it's certainly, as Campbell said, it's horses for courses. Stephen talking about absolutely complexity as a disaster. We want simplicity. Jim saying keep it simple. And really, Albert saying it's really at the heart of all this, it's what do our customers want, and that's what we want to deliver. And there are different customers for different routings, for different stage lengths, from long haul to short haul, and they have different requirements. And the most successful airline is going to be the one that meets those requirements in the most cost-efficient way. So we've got a lot to aim for going forward. There's a huge growth available for aviation in Asia Pacific, and I'm very confident that the 4 gentlemen here will ensure that their airlines continue to grow and benefit and thrive. And I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you'll join me in applauding them for sharing their thoughts with us this morning. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.